This is the Demystifying Crypto and Building Wealth podcast.
I knew that would be worth trillions.
That had never existed in human history. There's been massive opportunities.
The #1 podcast to help you understand and get insights into the crypto world, blockchain technology, wealth building, and financial investing. Now, here's your host, Teeka Tiwari, the world's #1 most trusted cryptocurrency analyst and Wall Street veteran with decades of experience in the financial space.
I will get started and kick this off. So, friends, the first thing I want to say is that I've noticed that there are even more scammers than normal coming out and contacting people saying, oh, hey, if you want to copy trade me, join my special group. Please do not fall for these scammers. Anything that we do in terms of an offer or anything like that will come through teekatiwari.com or will come through some type of live event that you'll see like right now or through like a typical webinar, something like that. You'll know it's from me. I will never, ever private message you. Nobody from my team will private message you. That's another thing that they've been doing. They've been pretending that they're part of my social media team, private messaging people and saying, oh, do you want to, get a special invite to Teeka's copy trade group? That doesn't exist. There is no group. I will be starting a new newsletter company. That's a process. So I'm in the process of starting that up. I'm shooting for June. And so here's what I'm doing in the interim. The best way to get my most up-to-date thinking is to go to teekatiwari.com, sign up there, give me your email, and then as I have new content, I will be pushing it out through that e-letter first. I'm doing a free e-letter. So anybody on my free e-letter gets my most current up-to-date thinking first, and then I'll be publishing it on the website. Now, I just put together a special report that's completely free. Friends, there are 3 new drivers that are going to drive the price of Bitcoin far higher than really most people realize, because folks they have a set way of looking at the world and they don't understand how the world has changed. And so there are these 3 new pillars under a new level of price discovery that is about to take place in the Bitcoin market. Now, I talk about Bitcoin a lot because as Bitcoin goes, if you can get the Bitcoin story right, then you will get the altcoin story right. So understanding where Bitcoin is going to go, how high it's going to go, and the fundamental drivers that are going to take it higher is critical to you understanding the altcoin market. So I want you to read this special report. It's free. Go to teekatiwari.com. You can sign up for it. Download the report. And then we had a question here, how often will my free e-letter go out? So this is why I need you to be patient with me. I'm going to push out at least 1 new piece of content a week, but there's so much happening right now. I might push out 3 or 4. It's so, something that I've always prided myself on with my members is that if there was nothing new to say, I wasn't going to spam you with a whole bunch of different messages. But if there was a lot to say, then I was going to send you a lot of messages about things that were unfolding. And right now, there's just a tremendous amount going on in the marketplace. And a lot of what I'm going to reference moving forward is around these 3 new drivers that's in that special report that I wrote. So please go to teekatiwari.com. Download that report. Anybody that is interested in following me, have them go to teekatiwari.com, sign up there. That is the only official place where you will be able to hear from me. And again, please be careful of these scammers that are reaching out to my followers and saying, oh, if you want to get access to Teeka's trades or I've started up a private group. I haven't. I do not have any private groups. I am not giving any picks out in any private way. I will be launching a newsletter, but that's probably going to be sometime in June, and I will keep you up to date with everything through teekatiwari.com and through the free e-letter that you can access at teekatiwari.com. So yesterday, I want to talk about something very important that happened yesterday. Yesterday, Jamie Dimon came out, and as we know, Jamie Dimon is the head of the most powerful bank in the world, JP Morgan. Jamie Dimon came out and he said again, his Bitcoin rhetoric. I wrote it down. He said, I will defend your right to smoke a cigarette as I will defend your right to buy a Bitcoin. So kind of like a backhanded way of saying, begrudgingly saying, yes, okay, you can buy Bitcoin. So why does this matter? It matters because Jamie Dimon is the most powerful banker in the world. And the banksters, whether you love them or you hate them, are the most powerful financial cartel in the world. The Mexican drug cartels have nothing on the international banking cartels. The international banking cartels can dethrone, debank, or defund any government on the planet. So when the most powerful man of the most powerful gang in the world says he's going to defend your right to buy Bitcoin, you can be assured that you will be able to buy and sell Bitcoin at will, and the government isn't going to come out and take your Bitcoin, that they won't be able to. And this is something that I've been saying since 2017 to 2018. I said back then that Wall Street greed will bring brokerage firms and ETFs into the space, and you will have a financialization of Bitcoin and crypto assets. And the advantage of that is that their lobbyists, their lawyers, their money will act as a defender of the network. There's a mistake out there that people think, oh, it's this terrible thing that traditional finance is in Bitcoin. They think, and at least traditional finance thinks this, they think that they can eat Bitcoin by bringing it within this traditional financial world. But here's the thing you need to understand about Bitcoin. While you think you're eating Bitcoin, Bitcoin eats you. It has this incredible interplay of incentives that ensures that once you get into that Bitcoin network, you do everything in your power to protect that network because your wealth is tied up into it. Now, as we look at BlackRock, they've got $10 billion or so in assets, just in flows that have recently come in. Their assets are going to continue to grow and grow and grow. They're going to have hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. Those Bitcoin that they custody is going to give them over time billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of fees. That incentive makes them a defender of the network. They have to, because they make so much money from it. And that's just going to continue on and on and on. So you've got to pull back the camera and you've got to look at these incentive mechanisms, how they compound upon each other. We now have one of the biggest Bitcoin naysayers, somebody who said, Jamie Dimon, we should have outlawed it. It should be illegal. It's a pet rock. It's a Ponzi. It's a fraud. That guy just came out and said he's going to defend his right for you to buy a Bitcoin. Think about that. Think about what it takes for that man who has an ego the size of Texas, justifiably so. He runs the biggest bank in the world. No knock on him for that. But think about what it took for him to walk back all his anti-Bitcoin rhetoric to go from Bitcoin should be illegal to I will defend your right to buy a Bitcoin. That's a huge move, friends. And so I know that right now, probably one of the biggest fears that individuals have right now is it too late? Have I missed it? And I know this is going to be hard to swallow since we're up something like 350% since the lows of 22. But friends, we are still so early. We are still so early. Let me give you an example. I took a picture of me and my son in front of a Bitcoin sign in Miami. I sent this picture to a friend of mine who's a money manager. And I said, getting my boy in BTC early. And he sent me back a text. He said, what's BTC? And I had to explain, BTC is the acronym for Bitcoin. And he felt silly for not knowing that, but it just shows you how early we are. We live in this Bitcoin world, in this Bitcoin bubble, and we're so in tune with what goes on with Bitcoin. But the rest of the world isn't. The rest of the world is consumed with the price of eggs and the price of bacon and the price of milk and their jobs and their families and this guy with running his business, that their focus has not yet shifted to Bitcoin. Now, a quick way to verify this is look at the amount of searches there have been on Google for Bitcoin and crypto now relative to previous market peaks. They're really low. So, Bitcoin and crypto is only just starting to percolate and bubble up into the consciousness of the larger scale of certainly of the American public. And I would say that is true outside of the United States as well. Now, another thing that you need to pay close attention to is this continued financialization of these assets. And what do I mean when I say financialization? What I mean is that traditional finance, like an equity wrapper around something, like basically, this cup of coffee, putting a wrapper around it so you can trade it. And that's what an ETF does. It takes Bitcoin, which is somewhat difficult to trade if you're not, it's not really that hard, but for the average everyday investor, it's difficult. And they take it and they basically issue a share, and that share represents that piece of Bitcoin in this ETF format, which makes it much easier to buy, sell, and hold. You don't have to worry about private keys. You don't have to worry about your wallet. You don't have to worry about losing it. You don't have to worry about someone hacking your account. You don't have to worry about sending it to the wrong address, something that many people have done. So back in 2016, when Bitcoin was 400, people would say to me, Teeka, yeah, I like it. It sounds good, but I want to wait till I can buy it in my brokerage account. And back then I said, look, if you wait to buy Bitcoin until you can buy it in your brokerage account, you will pay $40,000 of Bitcoin. Remember, at the time, Bitcoin was 400. People literally laughed at me. Bitcoin's now at 72,000. The easier you make it to own Bitcoin, the higher Bitcoin goes. Now, why is that important? The UK government just announced a couple of days ago that they are going to allow the trading of Bitcoin exchange traded products. They call them ETPs. That's a big deal. That's a whole nother round of buyers that can come into the market now. So on that news, again, we saw Bitcoin rally. Now, is this move going to go up in a straight line? No, Bitcoin never moves in a straight line. But here's the thing to remember. Even if you had terrible timing with Bitcoin and you have bought every single high for the last 10 years, yes, you would have had many times when you were down 85%, but you would have always made money. Over a rolling 4-year period, you would have always made money. And so this is the beauty about getting involved in an asset very early in its adoption cycle. And yes, we are still very early in its adoption cycle. Look at companies like Microsoft or Amazon. Microsoft's been around 40 years, just about 40 years as a publicly traded company. You could have bought Microsoft at the high at any period over the last 40 years and still made money. That's the power of a world-class asset. That's the power of an asset that is undergoing a multi-decade adoption cycle. And that is true for Bitcoin. Now, this next adoption cycle in Bitcoin is being driven by the first stage of the financialization of Bitcoin, i.e., being available in a stock form, right? In an equity wrapper, in a form of a stock that you can buy. Now, I know that you, as well as many individual investors, sit there and look, well, this is $72,000. It's too late. I can't buy this now. But institutions don't think that way. When you're an institution, and I go into much greater detail about this in my special report, which you can access at teekatiwari.com. It's completely free. It basically gives you the framework for that next move higher in Bitcoin and the reasoning why we are going significantly higher than most people realize. We have a question here. Are you recommending that you buy it at 72K? I recommended that you bought at 16, you bought at 20, you bought at 25. What I'm saying is that if you do not own any Bitcoin, right? If you're in a position where you do not own any Bitcoin, you should own some now. You should at least own a piece. And again, we have not escaped the volatility cycle. Anytime you see volatility, buy some more. If you're afraid, you say, T, I don't own any and I'm just afraid of buying at 72, then dollar cost averaging. Buy a little bit every single day or a little bit every single week. You're not going to get the best price. You're not going to get the worst price, but you got to get off zero. At the very minimum, we will see, in my opinion, we will see $150,000 Bitcoin over the next 12 months at a minimum, right? So this is a great question. When do you advise putting some money out? So I've always said that when you have Bitcoin, you have two separate stacks of Bitcoin. You have your long-term HODL stack, and then you have your shorter-term trading stack. And so my recommendation is that with your short-term stack, I think you should be holding your short-term stack until at least 150K. And that 150K, sure, take some profits because you're gonna have huge profits at $150,000. Now, the next level from 150K is probably somewhere in that 230 to 260,000. If we breach that level, then I believe the peak of this move could be as high as $380,000 as the peak move. Now, should you wait all the way to 380? No, I don't think so. I think, again, you have your trading stack that you can start taking profits on as we move into 150K. Then you have your long-term stack that you can start taking out a little bit between 230 and 260. And then assuming we get above 300, anywhere between that 300 and 380K, which admittedly is a very wide range, you can start feeding some more out. I think that you should always keep an allocation to Bitcoin, no matter what, even if you have to sit through an 85% drawdown, because Bitcoin is the only asset I know that over time can continually keep the rest of your assets safe from inflation. So I would say to always have at least a 3 to 5% allocation to Bitcoin. Now, what happens is, let's say you listened to me in the past and you had a 1 to 5% allocation of Bitcoin, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Well, that as Bitcoin goes up in price, it becomes a much larger allocation of your overall net worth. And so, again, as you take profits, you want to keep your Bitcoin allocation generally 3 to 5% of your overall net worth, because I believe it will continue to compound over time and protect the value of your other assets from the ravages of inflation.
What do I do with RFox crappy coin dropped 95%?
Well, here's the thing. A rising tide lifts all boats. So if you're underwater on coins right now, and you're down 90%, there's no point selling now. Just be patient as the whole market moves up, right? So the way this works is first Bitcoin moves, then ETH moves, and then the altcoins move. That's just the way it happens. And so it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, unless the coin just is complete garbage. It doesn't make sense to take losses on coins that have crashed, because generally everything moves higher as the bull market unfolds. Now, remember, this bull market is just beginning. We just hit a new high on Bitcoin. So we should have at least 18 months, probably 24 months ahead of us of really compelling markets.
How about top 40 altcoins? Any recommendations?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about altcoins right now because that kind of research I'm going to save for my paid subscribers, and I'm still in the process of going through that. What I will say though, I will share with you an area that you should look at. You should look at what's going on in the Solana ecosystem. There's some very interesting things going on in the Solana ecosystem. That's an area where we're paying a lot of attention. Also, of course, the Ethereum ecosystem as well. But the Solana ecosystem has some very interesting projects that I've been paying a lot of attention to. So this question, should I buy Bitcoin today at its current price? So again, I'll repeat what I said. If you do not own any Bitcoin and you're afraid of buying at 72, just simply dollar cost average. If you say, okay, I've got $5,000 to put into Bitcoin, dollar cost average. Do it daily, do it weekly, but just dollar cost average. Again, we have this fear of volatility, and I get it. I don't like volatility. I had to sit through the last pullback, and I watched millions and millions of dollars of my net worth just get vaporized temporarily, and it was unpleasant to watch. So this is not me giving you some empty advice. I'm there with you every step of the way. I went through the 2018 bear market. I went through the 22 bear market for millions of dollars and had to sit through it. And I owned Bitcoin up as high as 55K, 58K, 48K, 52K, watched it go all the way down to 15,000. And I was buying all the way down, 38K, 30K, 20K, 25, 28, 22. It can't go lower than that, 17, 15. But here's the thing that I held on to. This asset is barely owned by the rest of the world. This is an adoption story. And when you are in early on an adoption story, like we are with Bitcoin, being in early on an adoption story bails you out of bad timing. You do not have to have perfect timing in order to make a tremendous amount of money when you are dealing with an asset or asset class that is in the early stages of its adoption cycle. And I learned that lesson looking at Microsoft, Oracle, Amazon, these major tech companies, Apple Computer, where they had adoption cycles that went on for decades. You could have bought those companies at their peaks again and again and again and again across the 80s, the 90s, the double O's, the teens, the now, and still made money. And it's rare when you can identify an asset like that. And when you can identify an asset like that, you have to participate in it. Because friends, let's be clear with each other. We can't get rich from our day jobs. We can't get rich from owning the S&P 500. It cannot grow fast enough in order to get us rich. The beauty about these types of assets, crypto assets, is that we have asymmetric, or we can get asymmetric returns. We have asymmetric risk. We can put a small amount of money, 1 to 5% of our net worth, and we can double our net worth over time. When you get odds that are that good, you have to participate. This is why I've always said, listen, I'm not suggesting you go out and you put your whole net worth into these assets. That's not smart. What I've always said is that you build a base of low risk income producing assets, such as real estate, such as income producing blue chip stocks, the S&P 500, and then you take 1 to 5% of your investable capital and you buy Bitcoin. And you just let time do the heavy lifting. And over time, that Bitcoin will supercharge your entire net worth without putting your current lifestyle at risk. This is the playbook I have been using to build my own wealth. And it's the playbook that I continue to use in order to grow my wealth without putting my current wealth at risk. And it's a playbook that we can still use today, even with Bitcoin at $72,000 a coin. There's a question here. What are your thoughts about this being a shortened cycle? I actually think the exact opposite. I think the last cycle was shortened because of the climate FUD, and also because of all of the chicanery that went on with the Terra Luna, FTX, all the leverage lending. I think that is what shortened the cycle. I actually think this cycle could be the longest bull cycle we ever see. And this gets me to a point I wanted to make about institutions. The new institutions coming into the market right now are price insensitive. They won't always be price insensitive, but they're price insensitive right now. What does that mean? It means they don't care that Bitcoin's at 72 and it was 15 just a couple of years ago. They don't care. Why? Because they don't own any Bitcoin and they must get off zero. So they look at their assets under management. Let's say they got 100 billion under management. They say, okay, we're putting 1% into Bitcoin, right? So they allocate based on percentages, not based on price. For instance, if you have a fund that allocates to the S&P 500 and allocates to small caps, they don't say, oh, the small caps are too expensive today, we're not buying them. No, they have to have 15% allocation to the small caps, 35% allocation to the big caps. That's the way they make their decisions. They do it by allocation. So this new type of price insensitive buyer that doesn't care about price, that just cares about allocation percentage, has never, ever existed in Bitcoin, ever. I want you to think about that. I want you to really ponder that. I need you to get outside of your frame of reference. And this is hard. What I'm asking you to do is hard. It ain't easy. I'm asking you to get out of your frame of reference and think in a different way. Because the people that are now coming into this space don't think the way that you think. They think differently. And if you don't have the ability to understand the way they think, you're going to make bad decisions. When you see Bitcoin at 80,000, 90,000, 100,000, you're going to be like, oh yeah, no, these whoever's buying here is crazy. Let me tell you something. You can't become a billionaire or manage billions of dollars if you're crazy. You just can't. No one's going to entrust you with running billions of dollars if you're crazy. You can't build massive wealth if you're Stugatz, right? If you're nuts, you can't. So a lot of times we look at these big investors that make moves and they appear to be buying at the highs, and yet they make enormous amounts of money for their customers. So it's very important to start thinking outside of your own frame of reference. And again, I'm not looking to trigger anybody here, but this is a process that I had to go through. I would sit there and be very judgmental when earlier in my life about, oh, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? At these people that had far more wealth than me and had a history of making far better decisions than me. And I'm sitting there thinking that my decision-making is better. And then one day I woke up and I looked at my life. I looked at how much money I had. I looked at the people that were in my life. I looked at the kind of person I was professionally, where I was in my profession. And I realized, wow, there's something wrong with my thinking, right? My thinking is not working right, because if it was, I would have the life that I want. Okay, so what the realization I had was, if I don't have the life that I want, or I'm not on track to get the life that I want, something is wrong with my thinking. And I need to think differently. I need a new frame. I need a different frame. Now, that's very difficult to admit. One, I have an ego. It's not a small one, right? So that's really hard to say, oh, wow, let me put this focus on me. That's really difficult to do that. But we must. You don't have to share it with anybody else. We must. If we do not develop the ability for self-examination, we can never, ever get beyond the current life we have. And friends, if I have any mission in this life, it's to help you get the life you want, not the life you feel you have to settle for. Because friends, hear me when I tell you, there is unlimited opportunity in the world. There is unlimited money in the world. And there are so many quote unquote idiots, people that I don't like. I don't like the way they live their life, but they're out there and they understand this. They understand that the acquisition of money has nothing to do with being deserving. There's just certain mental frameworks and rules that if you follow, then money follows. And I would love to see more people that have heart, that have love, that have compassion in their heart get rich, right? So there's this belief that, oh my God, you can't have compassion, you can't be a kind person and develop wealth. And that's just not true. It's just not true. Those people are definitely in the minority, okay, but it's a choice. It's a choice, okay? So you deserve to have wealth. Having wealth does not make you a bad person. You will need to elevate your thinking in certain areas. You will need to get outside of some of your own self-centered fears in order to develop wealth. You will need to raise your belief in what you believe you deserve, what you believe you're worth, what you believe you can achieve. Yes, and that's heavy lifting. That's like me telling you to go to the gym and lift weights every day. It's hard. Nobody wants to do it. I get it. But friends, let me tell you, that journey is worth it. It's worth it. Just getting on that road alone automatically improves your life in ways that I cannot articulate, that you can only have, you can only experience yourself once you get on that journey. All right, so I'm going to get off my soapbox there. That's my true passion.
When will the wirehouses approve?
I don't have an exact date. I would imagine within the next 6 months, wirehouses will approve this. Now, why will they approve it? Money. That's why. Wirehouses have moved to a fee-based asset management model. So the more money they have under management, the more fees they generate. The wirehouse management are going to be looking at the amount of money that is going under management in these ETFs, which, by the way, this is the most amount of money ever raised by an ETF in this period of time, ever in an ETF class. And their greed glands, okay, to use a Scott Galloway phrase, I love that phrase, are going to start pumping. And they're going to get greedy. And they're going to say, look, we're losing business to Fidelity by not offering this to our clients. So I think this is just a question of time. It's probably going to happen within 90 days, but let's be conservative and say within 6 months. The wirehouses will approve it. They have to. And then every RIA, registered investment advisor on the planet, I believe, is eventually going to put at least 1 to 5% of their clients' assets in Bitcoin. Now, here's the thing to remember. We have the halving coming up in April, somewhere around April 20th, somewhere in that area. So the amount of new Bitcoin coming to market is going to cut in half, just as this ocean of buy orders is going to come into this asset class. That's why, friends, the movement up could be truly breathtaking. I mean, I'm one of the biggest Bitcoin bulls you're ever going to find. And I think even I could be shocked by how far we go. This is a great message somebody put. You're the reason I never sold my Bitcoin for 8 years. And I want to thank you for always keeping me hopeful. It's paying off big time. That's amazing. So if you bought Bitcoin 8 years ago and you held on to it, you're making life-changing wealth. Life-changing wealth. And I salute you. It has not been easy to hold your Bitcoin for 8 years. Think about all the volatility, all the fear, all the uncertainty, all the doubt, China banning mining, China banning Bitcoin, the Bitcoin forks, the Bitcoin wars, the fears. Will it ETF? Will it not ETF? And yet, all you had to do was hold and you make money. It's going to be the same thing going forward as this new wave of new buyers come into the market. Question here, what are wirehouses? A wirehouse is what people call the large brokerage firms like Merrill Lynch. It's an old term from back in the day, back in the 20s, they called them wirehouses, and it kind of stuck. But it's basically the big traditional brokerage firms. How do I feel about acquiring Bitcoin through institutional investment companies like Fidelity? Yeah, I think I've got no problem with it. You know, my preference is to own actual Bitcoin and have it in a wallet, but I appreciate that's not for everybody. So I think these ETFs are just fantastic way for people to get exposure to Bitcoin without worrying about losing their private keys. So here's the problem in the past, why I couldn't recommend meme coins. My subscriber base was gigantic. I had the largest crypto-focused newsletter on the planet, by an order of magnitude. And so because we were so large, a lot of these meme coins, I just couldn't recommend because they would just, I'd be the exit, I'd be the entry and exit liquidity for everybody. And so one of the advantages in my new service, since of course it's going to be smaller, I just won't have the scale to be as large as I was before, is that I will be able to recommend some of these incredible meme coins where you can just make tremendous amounts of money. We have this question about Conan, about the AI service. I do plan on having an AI service as well to help us on the trading side. So in the beginning, again, you got to remember, I don't have a massive publicly traded company behind me anymore. So in the beginning, I'm going to start small. We're going to be crypto focused. There's going to be a lot of different type of crypto recommendations. And then over time, as I get the opportunity to build my business, I will be adding more staff. And then, of course, we'll be able to do more research and be able to offer ideas and recommendations around more and varied aspects of the entire crypto space. Do I think there'll be a pullback from 73 before skyrocketing? It's a great question. I don't have the answer. And that's the truth. I don't have the answer. I can give you my opinion, but I don't know for sure. Bitcoin can do anything on any given day. What I'm saying is this: at a minimum, I think we see 150K Bitcoin. So if I bought Bitcoin today at 72 and it dropped to 52 tomorrow, but it goes to 150 in a year, does it matter? Not really. And if I'm worried about a pullback, maybe I buy half now and save the other half. But for me, what I've always focused on when it comes to Bitcoin, and remember, you're talking to a guy who sat through multiple 50% pullbacks and a couple 85% pullbacks. I have always focused on what I call the terminal value of Bitcoin. I have always believed that Bitcoin will displace gold. And so in order for Bitcoin to do that, Bitcoin has to rise to a price of about $700,000 a Bitcoin. So what I've always said to myself, when I bought Bitcoin at 55K and it dropped to 15, I said, okay, that sucks. It hurts. I'm not a robot, guys. I have feelings. Okay. Watching something I bought at 55 go to 15, it's like getting punched in the face. It's not pleasant. But so how do I hold? I say, okay, go back to your research. What's your terminal value? Your terminal value is 700K. At 700K, does it matter if you bought it at 55 and it went to 15? If you end up selling it at 700,000, does it really matter? And I said, no, it doesn't really matter. And so that has what has kept me going all through the volatility. I focus on that terminal value. So for you, it might be different. You might say, well, I think terminal value is 300 or 500 or 600 or 400. Then you have to figure out within that terminal value, within that target price of what you're shooting for, the level of volatility you're willing to accept. For me, my belief is that Bitcoin will be the base financial layer for the entire globe, will be the base financial layer for the entire globe. Now, that has been held by gold for centuries. Gold has been the base layer for the financial system. Now, a lot of people say to me, gold's been around for 5,000 years, and it has been essentially the base layer of money for humanity. And I say, you're right. But horses were the base layer for transportation for 5,000 years. Does that mean when the automobile came along, that we should have ignored it and just be all been riding horses because that's what we did for 5,000 years? No. Bitcoin is many orders of magnitude a better base layer than gold. And so telling me that I should be buying gold instead of buying Bitcoin, looking at you, Peter Schiff, is like telling me that when the automobile came about, that I should stay in the horse business. I'm getting off on a tangent here because I'm trying to give you a perspective on how high I think Bitcoin can go and how important I believe Bitcoin will continue to be for future generations to come. And my boy is about 20 days old. When he's 20 years old, do you think he's going to want to buy gold, own gold, or do you think he's going to want to own Bitcoin? He's going to want to own Bitcoin. He's going to want to own Bitcoin. The future belongs to Bitcoin, not gold. And if that's true, then Bitcoin at 72, 73, 75, 175 is crazy cheap. And that's what I focus on. Now, on any given day, Bitcoin can drop 50%. Bitcoin can drop 80%. I can't control that. You can't control that. That is the nature of the asset. There's nothing I can do about that. All I have to do is be smart enough not to sell. That's it. That's it. And rely on time to do the heavy lifting for me, to rely on Bitcoin's incentives to do the heavy lifting for me. I've been doing that since 2016, and it's transformed my financial life, and it's transformed the financial life of the people that have listened to me since then.
When will you begin the new service?
Right now, I'm shooting for approximately June. I'm interviewing people right now for my new team that I'm putting together. What I think that's going to happen here is I think we're going to get a really big run up into the halving, and then post-halving, I would not be surprised to see a sell-off. And that's when I would be most interested in launching a new service into the sell-off rather than into the rally, because that's where the new opportunities are going to arise. So somebody says, will June be late considering the halving? So again, this is my thinking about that. I think that we're going to have a monster rally into the halving. I mean, we're seeing it right now, a monster rally into the halving. And then post-halving, I think there's like a kind of like a party hangover. And I would not be surprised to see some type of sell-off. That's what I think. Now, look, is that carved in stone? No, that's just my best thinking right now. And I always reserve the right to change my mind as the facts on the ground change. But right now, as I look at this, I think we go peak excitement into the halving, and then you probably have, it's probably a sell the news event, and then you probably start seeing some profit taking. Now, we could go to 100 or 120K on Bitcoin before the halving takes place. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But my best thinking right now is that we continue rallying, we rally hard into the halving, and then we probably have a sell-off post-halving. And that will be the time where I believe that I can offer the best prices to my new subscribers on the coins that I'm going to be recommending, because I'm going to be looking at a subset of smaller coins that I believe are going to radically outperform both Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana as this bull market broadens out. And that's where I'm putting a lot of my intellectual energy right now, is in analyzing these coins that I want to recommend for my new service, because that's what I'm going to be building my new business on.
Miss Mary asked, what service will you have? She wants to know a little bit more details.
I'm gonna create a crypto newsletter service. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Just like Palm Beach Confidential. I don't know what the name is going to be yet. I haven't figured that out. We're putting that together now. Also, for everyone who is just coming in here, I wrote a free special report that outlines the 3 drivers to Bitcoin's current price movement and future price movement that most people are missing. You can access it at teekatiwari.com. It's completely free, teekatiwari.com. So just go there. You'll sign up for my free e-letter, and I'll be pushing out commentaries at least once a week, probably more than that, while I'm preparing to launch my newsletter service. So I have a special report out right now that outlines 3 drivers of Bitcoin. It's completely free. I strongly urge you to go to teekatiwari.com and download it. Also, I want to warn you, there are so many scammers out there that are saying that, oh, come copy trade Teeka Tiwari, come join my new mentoring service. I don't have any of those things. None of those things have launched. If they do launch, they'll be done through either a live event like this, where you can see me talking, giving an actual link. It'll be done either through a webinar, or it'll be done through teekatiwari.com. Yeah, and so if anybody has any names or ideas of what the new service should be called, feel free to email them to me. My email is jointeeka@gmail.com. So we play, the question is, can't those fake IG accounts be blocked? Yeah, every time we block them, they come up with a new one. It's a game of whack-a-mole. So again, just a simple rule. I will never, ever DM you. No one from my team will ever DM you. Anything that we do will be done through either, again, an IG Live, through teekatiwari.com, or through a webinar. Okay, so I've been on here for almost an hour. Are there any other final questions you'd like to get into it? Now, a lot of the questions you have will be answered in that special report that I wrote that you can access on teekatiwari.com. Okay, well, I think I'm going to wrap things up here. Friends, I want to thank you so much for joining me for this live. It's been wonderful sharing this with you. I'm going to be writing and sending out commentary at least once a week, probably more. Please go to teekatiwari.com, sign up for my free e-letter. We will save this live and it will be available for a replay. I'm also recording it to go up on YouTube as well. Friends, I want to thank you so much. Let's just go on this journey together. Let's make as much money as possible. And let's always remember to let the gain come to you. All right, friends, take care. Bye-bye.
So that concludes today's episode. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. You can find the show notes on www.teekatiwari.com. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with others, talk about it on social media, and leave a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss another episode. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.